Hi, everyone. I'm Scott Feinberg from The Hollywood Reporter. Thank you for being here. And we have some other people here who are pretty excited to be here as well, and you're going to be excited to see them. So let's start, first of all, with Riff Mike Faist. Next up, please welcome David Alvarez. He's Bernardo. Next, please welcome Anita Ariana DeBose. She is Maria. Please say hello to Rachel Zegler. Here comes Tony, Ansel, Elgort. And last but not least, Valentina, Rita Moreno. Well, thank you guys all for being here. It's cool to have the whole principal group. And got to begin with Rita Moreno. This is a title, a project that you have been associated with for 60 years. I would like to ask you, honestly, if we gave you Truth Serum, when you first heard that they were going to remake it, what was your reaction initially?
Initially? Uh-oh.
And
it wasn't Stephen so much, it was Tony. I thought, gosh, he's kind of dark. Oh, what an idiot I am.
Well, yeah, talk me through, because you not only were won over, but you were won over to the extent of course, playing a great new part that they've added, and also executive producing. So what was the process of coming around on this for you?
Well, everyone who was cast had to sleep with me first. Especially him. I can't answer anything seriously. I'm feeling too good, man.
Good.
I am feeling good.
Looking good. Yeah. Well, okay.
What was it you asked? I'm sorry.
Well, just like...
I'm about to be 90. I forget everything.
Well, I believe you got a call from Steven Spielberg, having heard already that he was doing that.
Right. Yeah, I got a call from him. And my agent had told me that Steven wanted to talk to me. I did know that he was going to do the film. And that's when I heard about Tony Kushner. And so, like, that afternoon, he called me and he told me about the film. And I said, I know, I've read about it. And he said, would you be interested in participating in it? And I put on my most polite, thoughtful voice, and I said, well, I certainly don't want to tell you how to make your own film, but I don't do cameos. And I said, I just think it might be quite a distraction in your film. And before I could finish, thank God, he said, no, it's a real part. And Tony Kushner thought of it, and he's a big fan of yours, and all that kind of stuff, and that's how it is. Can I read the script? Yes. And I was absolutely just awestruck. I really was.
Well, so that's a wonderful story of how you come to be involved. Now we've got the new generation of West Side Story. I want to talk to you guys about the casting process, and we should note that it was Cindy Tollin working with Steven Spielberg to cast this. And I'm going to go one by one
But
here.
you need to know how long they had to wait to get the answer. I just found out today. I was shocked.
Well, yeah,
Sorry,
I mean,
go
in
ahead.
each of these different cases. But before I even tee that part up, I'm going to note a little bit about the background of each of you guys, because, Ansel, let's start with you. You went to LaGuardia, the Fame High School. You have a background. I think part of what led you to performing was dance, right? Yeah. And in fact, if people want to leave here and go home and have some fun afterwards, there is a cool thing from, I think it was like a Teen Vogue cover shoot where you did a video showing every type of dance of the 20th century, and it's amazing. So this is really your cup of tea, that not everybody knew that. But was this a matter of somebody saying like, or of you hearing about this and going after it, or did they bring this up with you knowing that?
Yeah, I mean, I just chased it, and I mean, but all of us had to audition for, I mean, besides Rita, of course, but had to audition our butts off, literally, for it. Everybody, you know, we did a lot of chemistry reads. It was about like I feel like a year process, because, you know, Steven wanted to take his time, and I think he almost used the audition process like part of the rehearsal process, so that, you know, he could learn from, you know, who he was casting, and we could get better at what we were doing. I mean, like when I first sent my tape for singing Maria, I think Cindy Tolan didn't even send it. She's like, I'm not sending that. You know, you need to do better, which is great. You know, that's a great casting director. So I just kept working on it with a great vocal coach, and, you know, eventually was able to get into the room, and then sang with Rachel, who was like, the voice was just absolutely perfect from the very beginning.
Oh, thank you.
We are definitely coming to Rachel, but I want to build our way to Rachel because her story is in some ways the most insane. But David, you're another person with a background in dance. As a kid, you were one of the original Billy Elliots on Broadway. You were, I know, won a scholarship to the American Theater School. All this amazing stuff, and then, from what I understand, you kind of left the business, and Cindy thought of you and went looking for you, right?
Yeah, I kind of left the business. I was tired of it, and it's hard to come by projects like this where you're so inspired and so passionate about doing what you love to do, that sometimes it becomes demoralizing, and you're like, you know, I don't want to do this anymore. So I left it for the first 3 years. I was in the Army for 3 years, and then I came back, and I just still didn't want to really go back into the art business. And then I just kind of backpacked Mexico for a couple more years, and then that's when Cindy Tolan messaged me. I was in the jungles of Chiapas in Mexico. And I look at my phone and I'm like, what is going on here? There's a Steven Spielberg movie, and I have an audition for it.
Apparently, your message had been sitting there for 2 weeks.
Yeah, and I hadn't even read it for like 2 weeks. And but I was just so excited to be able to just at least put myself on tape. I had zero expectations. I thought it was such a long shot, but it's Steven Spielberg. You know, I'm gonna at least send in the tape out of just out of respect. And that's kind of how it started. And after that, I went into the callbacks, and here I am now. It's crazy.
Nice. Ariana, you were in the original Broadway cast of Hamilton, right? And a number of other Broadway productions. You were just recently in the film version of The Prom. You sing, you dance, you act, and yet, when this idea was first broached to you, you actually were not immediately interested. Is that right?
It wasn't that I wasn't interested. I was like, who's not going to be interested in something like this? Let's be honest. But it was more that, you know, I read a press release on Playbill.com, and I was like, that's going to be amazing. I'm not getting that job. Because traditionally, the Anitas that I've been exposed to just don't look like me. You know, like, I'm Afro-Latina, and it's not often that there are those, you know, portrayals before it. Thank you. So I was not optimistic that even if I was a triple threat, and like I have a very specific skill set that's built to do this kind of work, I just didn't think it was going to go my way. And Cindy Tolan had to drag me into the room. And I was like, are you sure? I mean, I'm playing Donna Summer. I got to go sing, oh no! You know what I mean? Like, if this isn't going to work out, like, no disrespect. And she was like, no, just come in. And no, I did. And, you know, I did tell him no, I wouldn't read for him because I was like, I didn't have time to prepare these very expanded Tony Kushner wordy scenes, and I wanted to do them right. And he was like, "But will you come back?" And I was like, "I'd be honored," and here we are.
There you go. Mike, you were talking about original cast. You were Tony nominated as an original cast member of Dear Evan Hansen on Broadway, and have really impressed people over the years since. And talk about your journey to this role is interesting because I think you were looked at and looking at a number of roles in this before it came to Riff, right?
Yeah, well, I was approached to first play Anita, and
God, now that would have been good.
it was one of those things where, Cindy asked, "Hey, come in, put a tape together for Tony," and you put it. As you hear stories, you put a tape together, you do your thing, and you let it go, and you're like, "That's it," And then they were like, "No, that's obviously not right, but come back in, let's do another tape for Riff." And then, that's what happened. I put a tape together. They asked me to come back in and dance with everyone. And I did ask, everyone has their insecurities about this thing a little bit, being like, "Are you guys sure?" Me, and when they did ask, will you come in and dance? I was like, "Do I have to?" And they're like, "It's West Side Story, you idiot." Yeah. You did. And then the final audition was with Ansel. And he was in the room, and he was lovely. And I said this last night to people, the first thing I saw is this gargantuan of a person. And I said, the quote that came out of my mouth was, "Holy fuck, you're tall." And then I looked at Steven and I said, "He's fucking tall." And then Steven
Isn't that sweet?
Yeah, I know. Yeah. And then Steven, being who he is, was like, "You're both tall. It's all great." So, yeah.
Can I just ask?
Oh, please.
How long was your audition? The time?
It was a year.
Time?
Yeah,
for
it was
you?
from February, I would say, is maybe that first thing until really the audition was in November, and then there was this whole back and forth. They had told Steven, because there was a conflict, potential conflict, and so they had told Steven, don't fall in love with him because he's not going to be available.
It's not available.
And I didn't find out that I had gotten the job. I was shooting this film in Atlantic City. They called me on a Friday saying, "Can you be in rehearsals on Monday?" And that was it. And that was February the next year.
So what? And how long was your process, David?
I think it was a month.
Yeah, mine felt like a month.
Yeah.
So it's like.
Well, they were really rushing to find an Anita and Bernardo, and they were like, "Just go with these guys."
They'll do.
I need something.
So
That'll
Over
do.
your talk back, sir. I
It's all
apologize.
good. It's all good. All right. So here's some fun facts. Rachel, you were in high school, senior, had never done screen acting before, right? Can you share what your background was in as far as music and acting when this opportunity first came to your attention?
I was a wedding singer. I sang at weddings and funerals and masses every Sunday. I had done community theater and theater in my high school, and that was the extent of my experience. I was not classically trained. I didn't grow up with lots of money to be classically trained. I had a voice coach that I actually used to split time with another student because I couldn't afford her for a full hour. And that was where I was at. I played Maria on stage when I was 16, and the production was horrible. And that was it was a community theater. But I was 16 years old, and that was 6 months shy of sending in my first tape for Steven's movie. And unlike these folks, I auditioned for 347 days.
Well, let's talk about, so you had somebody, you were in on the East Coast, right?
Yes.
And somebody out here forwarded the casting notice?
Yeah, it was a friend of mine. You know, I was living in New Jersey, and my friend McKenna, who lives here in California, she was just a friend of mine who just sent me Cindy Tolan's tweet saying, "Thank me when you're famous." And I remember thinking that was a preposterous idea. And so I did it. And I sat down and I sang I Feel Pretty in Spanish, Me Siento Hermosa, from the 2009 revival directed by Arthur Lawrence. And also the very beginning of the balcony scene. It's a terrible tape. The tape is horrible. I had never done a self-tape in my life. The lighting was terrible. I had an atrocious haircut. And I said to my mom verbatim, "It's not like it's gonna go anywhere." And it went everywhere.
Well, it's an incredible, one of these like truly Hollywood stories.
It's possible. You know, it's one of those things.
So once you guys were all on board, there were 8 weeks of rehearsal and then 16 weeks of shooting, or you're shaking your head, Mike?
Like 4 months
it
of
was a lot of
rehearsal, man.
rehearsal.
4 months?
Because everyone was workshopping these dance moments with Justin Peck, who was actually like cultivating something for the Jerome Robbins estate to approve. So there were multiple days where the Jerome Robbins estate was coming in and just kind of like, yes, and like looking at everything. So you
I
guys
didn't
were
know that. Really?
yeah,
Like-
terrifying days.
The pre-production. There was a lot of pre-production that went into this.
And Ansel, your rehearsal was much longer than that, I think, correct?
Yeah, mine was 6 months. Yeah, because I was like definitely. I mean, I was not the best dancer, especially we're the ensemble, and even Mike, who thinks he's not that great, was like a Broadway dancer, and like I had not really that great, and so they started me in dance rehearsals in December, and we didn't start filming until June. So.
And I know another thing that was going on then was it was very important from the time before any of you, I believe, were on board. Stephen and Tony were meeting with people in San Juan, right? About
The University of Puerto Rico.
Right,
Their
Rita.
jaws must have dropped when Stephen called. And, they must have said something like, well, there were some people who didn't care for it. And I'm guessing that Stephen would have said then, that's precisely why we want to be there. We want anyone to come and ask questions or make criticism. But that's why everything is so clear and filled with respect and dignity for this cast.
well, and I know one of the things they did was Ariana. I think they had people come talk to you guys during rehearsal, right? And different, almost like college lectures, right?
It was very cool. They brought in folks who were living in San Juan Hill at the time to speak to us. They had an Irish gang member come speak to us. So we could really dive into the lived experiences of these folks. They had experts. Virginia Sanchez Corro, who is an expert in Puerto Rican studies, came to speak to us. And then of course we had the late great Steve Sondheim come and spend time with us and speak about his experiences. But it was something really, really special to hear. How challenging it kind of was for him, and he was a little trepidatious about taking on the project, and so I think it's fun to have that in common with him. We were all like, I don't know about this job, and he was like, I don't know about the job.
I will just quote.
He said, I love something he said. He said there are 2 words that are impossible to rhyme, because he uses the rhyming dictionary all the time, apparently. Life and love.
Wow.
And he said, isn't that ironic? Life and love. There's nothing that rhymes with those 2 words.
Well, he, of course, we lost him a few days before the first screening, but he saw it, and he said, quote, "It's terrific. The whole thing has real sparkle to it and real energy, and it feels fresh. It's really first rate, and movie musicals are hard to do. And this one, Spielberg and Kushner really, really nailed it." So, not a bad review. I know another of the speakers that came to talk to you guys was Rita Moreno, who, and I want to ask you about just showing up on set the first day. How weird was it to be back in the world of West Side Story, to see somebody else playing Anita, and to just be there with all of this?
It wasn't weird so much as thrilling. It was a reality. It was going to happen. It was Steven Spielberg. It was Tony Kushner, who I just think did amazing things. with this script. And but I want to back up something somebody said. I don't think there was a week when there wasn't somebody there to speak to both gangs about that situation in 1957. People, some of whom had lost their homes. There wasn't a week when somebody wasn't constantly telling them about what this film was about, in essence. And that thrilled me, and that, as an executive producer, really eased my mind. It was amazing.
Ariana, it must be intimidating enough to be in any movie. Then it's a Steven Spielberg movie. Then you're playing Anita, and then Rita Moreno shows up. Can you talk about what that was like?
It was friendly. I told her that if she didn't behave, I would scratch her eyes.
I actually heard that there may have been a little. This is good. Here, you want to be in it?
Ansel's our designated documentarian during this entire press tour. You dropped some cash. There you go.
Well, so, Ariana, talk about that though, because I would think, I'm not an actor, but it doesn't take a huge leap of imagination to think that might be a little intimidating. But then also, I know how nice Rita actually is, and I believe she had some words of wisdom to share.
Yeah, she's pretty cool. I like her. No, of course, there's not a moment you don't realize, what you're taking on. It's, 60 years of legacy, and Rita means so much to so many of us. That is never going away. It's never going away, and it should not. But I think the only way that I was able to find my way through was with an ardent belief that two things can exist in the same space, right? And that, we're not going to duplicate or recycle anything here because there's absolutely no point, but we can offer a different perspective on it. And by virtue of being Afro-Lat, I was like, that's my way in. It's a different lived experience, and it's one that is not often talked about. And if I can, give a little of that to the conversation, and let, young Afro-Latinas see themselves in this story in this way, then that will be worth it. I love you over there, Ansel. So that was my way in. But of course, making the movie, I didn't necessarily feel the pressure. I feel it more now than I did then, if I'm truly honest. But the reality is, when I first saw West Side Story, I was enamored with the woman in the purple dress, right? And I wanted to try and dance like her. And through my life, there have been many Anitas who showed me possibility, right? So the fact that I get the opportunity to be a woman in the yellow dress with the red crinoline to show other young girls that there's possibility, that's why we do this. And so it's not about feeling the pressure anymore. It's just about carrying forth the message.
So I want to do a little bit of a rapid fire if we can. I'm going to mention a few scenes and ask certain ones of you to weigh in about just what you remember about what stands out about shooting it, and maybe even seeing it now. Let's start with Ariana and David. The American Number, I believe, was filmed over 10 days, some of them the hottest of the year in New York. Please take it away.
Really hot. Tan lines.
Heat wave.
Holes in shoes. That's true.
Melted shoes.
Melted shoes. I melted them. I had a sprained ankle. That was fun. If you can believe it. Hey. The fact that we got to do it in the streets of New York, it was a love letter to New York City, and you get to really see the Puerto Rican community at the time, and you get to love them. And you also get to hear the pros and cons of assimilation. He makes the case for one, I make the case for the other, and then you get to see Latin joy. And
All I could think of was, are they going to get shin splints when dancing on pavement is
It's hard.
insane.
It's really hard. And
Because a lot of the kids in the original got a lot of shin splints because of that.
it's a real thing. I mean, what are you going to do? You're going to put down a sprung floor in the middle of 116th Street? That's not happening. There's no time for that. So you dance your face off, and you go again until you get it right.
David, I heard there was some CGI later used in that?
Oh yeah. Well, I was just sweating
Obviously.
very embarrassing. Every time I lifted my arm up to, it's just dripping
Ooh, baby.
down. and then I look over at Steve and I'm like, I'm so sorry about this. And he's like, oh, don't worry, we'll CGI that out later. So it worked out.
Not many musicals have had a director direct who's got so much experience with visual effects, I would think, from his other stuff. But all right, let's go to Ansel and Mike. Cool is really turned into a much different number in this version than it was in the original, right? Anything you want to say about the days you shot that?
I have a great story about that. Ansel is one of my favorite actors I've ever worked with because he just shows up and brings not just a very authentic version of himself, but he's so excited. He's so genuinely excited, and he goes 150%. And even if that's at the cost to my health. But with that being said, there's this great day in rehearsal. Craig Salstein, who was one of our associate choreographers, took Ansel and I, and we had been rehearsing. Ansel and I literally rehearsed that number for 4 months, from February to June 8, 9, and 10 is when we shot those days. And we were in a rehearsal studio one day, and we were just walking through it, and there's this part where, you know, we're like wrestling and Ansel does this like kick, jump, dive thing off the whatever it's supposed to be, a beam. And we're in this rehearsal studio and we get to that part and Ansel's foot just goes right through the wall. And we just left that rehearsal room with a giant hole in the wall. And Craig was so lost for words, and I think we were just laughing hysterically. But that's how committed he is. He's wonderful.
Would you like to add?
Yeah, I know. I love that scene because it's, you know, it's about the relationship between the two of them and that the playfulness. It's like you get a sight into what it was like before, and you know, like that. He doesn't just like throw the gun in the water or whatever. He can't help himself. This is his best friend, and there's that playfulness, which then, you know, goes to that next place. But yeah, we rehearsed that for months and months, also because it was kind of like it grew with us. Because in the beginning it was a lot more basic, and then it evolved, and Justin Peck was pushing us and pushing the choreography, and when we finally got there on the day, we were able to just be in the scene together and forget about the choreography and let that be like lines we had memorized.
And the other thing about that, I mean, I think the benefit to us having rehearsed that number throughout the entire rehearsal process was that was the storyline, that was the arc for these two characters, and so we were constantly going through A, B, and C, A, B, and C, A, B, and C, and we just lived in that on a loop for that entire time, and so we were just living in that storyline between the two of us the entire experience.
Rachel, there's so many I could ask you about, but I understand that one of your personal favorites was I Feel Pretty.
Yes.
Why was, not that, I mean, I totally get it, but I want to know why for you.
You like that? Why?
No, you know, it's a very special number, and it was the first time. There's a part where I stand next to Hilda Mason, who plays Luce, and I say, "See that pretty girl in that mirror there?" And to the music, she sprays Windex on the mirror and I looked at myself in the mirror and I thought, "Oh my God, I'm the first Latina to play Maria on screen." And that was really when it sunk in for me. The song is about love, but it's also about self-love beyond just the love that she feels for Tony and that she knows Tony feels for her. And it was really important to me when having conversations with Tony Kushner that it was almost ironic that she was surrounded by all of these materials that belonged to the people she was serving, in the sense that she was cleaning Gimbals, which is a place she couldn't shop, she couldn't afford to shop at. And we thought it was really great to have this juxtaposition of the line, I hardly can believe I'm real, while singing to a mannequin. You think, I'm better than you. It was one of those moments. But, you know, it's very important for Latinas, Latina people in general, to be able to look at a screen and see themselves represented in a joyful way. Beyond negative, yes. And it's beyond a negative stereotype that I grew up seeing about, I'm a Colombian American, and I grew up with this shadow of this negative stereotype about Colombians and drugs and cartels and things like that just forced down my throat. And so being able to sing these beautiful words that Stephen Sondheim wrote, and even though he resents them because he thinks they were juvenilely written, and it was just it was so special, and it was truly the first time that I realized that it was very possible that young people had never been exposed to joy like that in their culture before, and being the first Latina to play Maria on screen, it was an honor that was not lost on me, and it was in that moment that I really realized how important our film was, and how important it hopefully will be to this next generation, and ushering these issues and this joy to a new generation to understand. And it takes place in 1957, but it's for a 2021 audience.
Absolutely. So you guys, I feel like there could be a little insider trading going on here, because you're seeing this before just about anyone else, and you now know. If I were you, I would go out and buy stock in tissues, because you know that when Rita Moreno starts singing somewhere, everybody cries. And so I want to ask you, that was obviously created, that moment specifically for you, and it has so many, it's the subtext there for us watching it. There's so many things that we're thinking about. I want to know what you were thinking about with that.
It's interesting that he placed it there. And speaking of Tony, it's Tony again. It's Tony, the one who truly has revolutionized a lot of things within the script. And I have to tell you, that's always been one of my favorite songs. And I don't know how many people know this, but in the Broadway play, which I saw at the time, it was a ballet. It was called the Somewhere Ballet. It was a real ballet with that beautiful music. And a girl, Riri Grist, sang the words from the wings. I can only assume that the reason they took it out is probably because it delayed the show. Probably made the show very, very long. And when I saw that in the script, I just stared at the words to the song, and I broke into tears. I just couldn't believe that I was actually going to sing that extraordinary song. And it's an interesting where he places it, Tony places that song, because there's a place where us suddenly becomes something else. It has another meaning. And she's also singing about the community. And what I wanted to do initially, which I thought you might find interesting, is I wanted her to do, you know what I'm going to say. It's a battle I lost. I wanted to sing it with a bit of anger. Because you can do that with that song. There's a place for us. I can't remember the fucking words. But do you know what I'm saying? It's not difficult to go there. And I thought, that'll give us something very interesting. And I had all kinds of ways to say it with not a lot of anger, but just enough to make it in a way more poignant. I thought, I lost that battle.
Well, I want to follow up, if we can, with a fun fact from you were nice enough to come do my podcast a few weeks ago, and you told me something I'd never heard before, which was that, Jerome Robbins co-directed, right, The King and I before.
Also, that's how I knew him.
Right, and he then asked you originally to be a part of the theatrical version of West Side Story, but in which part?
Maria.
So you would have sung somewhere.
Because I was playing Tuptim in The King and I, and that was his first film. Actually, he staged the numbers, and he said, "I'm going to do a play next year, and I think you'd be pretty good for it. Would you? It's about Romeo and Juliet, blah blah." And he said, "Would you be interested in auditioning for it?" And I said, "Oh yeah." And then he left, and I thought, "Oh God." I don't think I could carry that off. I've done too many movies. That's why I never showed up. I was afraid that I wouldn't be able to carry off. And as it happens, I probably wouldn't have, because Maria had the soprano part. I don't have that kind of voice even.
Well, you just think how different things might have been, because whatever would have happened,
Imagine.
You wouldn't have probably been Anita in the film version, which thankfully you...
I was meant to be Anita in that version.
That's right.
And it was Jerry who brought me into that production. He said to Robert Wise, "I think I know who might be good for this." Yeah, it's great.
So our last thing, because I know you guys have a very busy day and night today and tonight. Talk about, so again, public's not going to see this for a few more days, but more and more people are, and the people who have can't contain their reactions. You guys are on social media, even you're on Twitter too, Rita. I don't know if you've been checking it, but there's a lot of great reactions that have come in almost universally. And I want to ask you what that's meant to you for one reason or another. You know, there's so many different levels why I think that might mean something. And also, you know, has Rita given you any advice about how your lives may be about to change? Because she's been through this before. So let's start with you, Mike, and we'll come down the line.
Well, honestly, this is the first I'm hearing about all this praise. It's not true, you know, not true, actually. Rita and we got started today, and she was saying, I told you. And I was like, what are you talking about?
And you know damn well.
And that's like, you know, that's like a me, like personal, like self-preservation thing. I just don't want to, anything good or bad, like I kind of see that as like, that's none of my business, you know, like I'm there to do my job, and like whatever you guys think, that's what for you guys, you know, and then I gotta, no. But I will say, since Rita has filled me in today, of the state of the world. I got my Rita news this morning. And we were talking about this, we were all saying this morning, is that, you know, I think for us, this was a very unique and wonderful experience for all of us. This was something that we all felt was very special, and it genuinely came from a place of love. And then, of course, we finished that, and then the 2 years that happened, the 2 years that we're coming off of, and now this film coming out again, it feels like it's the perfect time for this film to come out as a celebration for what we do, as a celebration for life, as a celebration of like shared communal experiences of being isolated for so long and like moving forward, right? Like we're revisiting this wonderful piece of our history and something that is cherished, and we're putting this newness on it to keep it alive so we can move forward in that way. And it's just very, I don't know, there's something like weirdly cosmic, if you believe in that kind of thing. There's like some things just are meant to happen when they happen, and it's hard to explain, but it's overwhelming, and I think we all feel very grateful to be a part of it.
Great. David, Ariana, you want to add anything?
I mean, I think Mike said it absolutely perfectly. I think we were doing it with so much love. Every day we were there, we were so grateful and so passionate and inspired. And I think after we finished shooting the movie, and we just kept reminding ourselves, that's what matters, is what we were feeling when we were working. What were we feeling when we were shooting this? And whatever the audience wants to take from that, it's their choice. It's whatever they choose to interpret from it, and everyone's going to interpret something different from it.
Yeah, there are so many, you know, socially aware themes explored in this film. It's meant to be a reflection back to the audiences, because there's so much to think about. We got a lot of work to do, you know. There's a lot of things that we can improve on in our own communities and in our country at large. So I feel like there is no better time for this film to be coming out, because art is healing, and art also begs us to ask deeper questions of ourselves. And I think we're poised to like potentially maybe not find solutions in the immediate, but it's the conversation starter. And this is a worthy and wonderful conversation to have now. And I'm very proud of the dancing in this film, and I'm so glad people want to dance with us. So yay!
Rachel, you ready to be a movie star?
Oh, no. Oh, never. No, I mean, going off of what these brilliant people have said, we could have never imagined what was going to go on in the 2 years after we wrapped. There was so much loss and grief and a lot of reckoning in a social way. Very public things were happening in the streets. And the idea of our film is, let's have the conversation before the tragedy. How do you avoid the tragedy? How do you avoid Maria's letter home to her father after the credits roll? how do you avoid that? And the way that you avoid that is conversation. And we can only hope that people see this film not only as it's not a period piece, it's a constantly poignant plot. And it's a reflection of our society and the way that we are so quick. I think Tony says it, people like Riff and me, we meet things we're not familiar with and there's a punch. And why do we do that? And I think Rita said to me, because part of your question was if we were given any golden nuggets of knowledge from Rita Moreno. And first day of rehearsal, Rita looked at me and said, as long as you use your voice, you've got them. We're giving voice to Latinos in Hollywood.
Hey.
We've got them. We're not going anywhere. And this is the start of a new era para nuestra gente, para siempre.
I'm actually going to have Ansel go and then Rita. Rita, I want you to close this out if you don't mind.
Good idea. I mean, yeah, just being a part of, this is I know that Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner say, because, we give them a lot of praise, but this piece by Stephen Sondheim and Leonard Bernstein and Arthur Lawrence and Jerome Robbins is such a masterpiece, and just the fact that we get to now keep telling the story and make it relevant again and give audiences a chance to see it again, that's just the greatest honor.
And I simply want to say, I'm assuming we're closing? Okay. I simply want to say, and it's something I said to the kids, I call them the kids. Well, when you're 90, everybody's a kid, right? I said to them this afternoon, because it needed to be said and I hadn't before, how pleased and proud, how deeply proud I am to have been a part of this endeavor with them, how astonishing they are to me. I mean, when this guy started to sing, this was the first scene where he sang the first song in the schedule. And out comes this guy saying, "Could be, who knows?" And he's going around the corner. I'm saying, damn, where did that come from, that voice? Is that a voice? Is that a voice? I was absolutely relaxed. But I feel that way about everybody, and I simply wanted to say how deeply I appreciate all of their talents, their souls, their hearts, and having been made a part of this. I could not be prouder.
Thank you.
That even includes Ariana.
Thank you so much. Tell your friends. West Side Story. Thank you.
Thank you.